let's get started on the first riffs. Here we go. All right, so what do you do there? You start off with playing a slide from about 5 to 7 on E with your ring finger. Pointer finger plays A5, then back to that E7, then pointer finger E5, then you slide to third, and then you make a pull-up like this, right? Then you put your pointer finger on 5th of E. You make a little slap with your thumb on the E string. You add your ring finger on A7 and make sure your pointer finger is barring all the strings, and then you just, with your thumb, you're strumming all the strings, right? So like this. Then you repeat that, but then instead of going to 5th position, we're going to be playing 3rd on the E string. Get that slap again, and now we're going to add a ring finger on A5, middle finger on G4, and our pointer finger is barring 3rd position, barring a G7 chord. By the way, that first chord was A minor 7, right? So those two chords, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 4, 1. And there you go. Then we get a little variation, and that goes like this. So what do you do there? Again, you get that slide with your ring finger from E5 to E7. Then your pointer finger plays A5. Then ring finger is A7, back to A5, to E7, then open E, and then pointer finger E5, like this. All right? Then again, you get that slap and the A minor 7 chord. And then you go back to the second riff, which is to the G7. As you may have noticed the first time I counted it in, the riff doesn't start on the first beat, it starts on the second beat. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1. 4, 1. All right, so now at the end of that intro, we hold that G7 chord, right, which is like 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, 4. So what happens is that you have that one bar of G7, so you got 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, and 2, and. So on the and 2, and you do up, down, up. And then you got on the 3 and the 4, you play a D7 chord. And it's a smaller version of a D7 chord. So you have your ring finger on G5, pointer finger on D4, and your middle finger on A5, right? What you want to make sure is that your middle finger mutes the E string, ring finger mutes, B and E. Also, your pointer finger could be helping there. But that gives you the option to really strum that D7 chord. So you play it, and you play it short. So what you do there is you squeeze the chord, right? So, but once you've squeezed it, you release it. Sounds kind of awkward. But anyways, so you got like that. So on that G7 bar, so that starts in bar 8, so you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, 4, right? And that D7 is where he starts singing, but baby, right? And then it goes into the chorus or the verse? The verse. And the verse goes like this. 3, 4. All right, so I ended up playing the chorus as well, or maybe it's reverse. I don't know. Maybe you can let me know in the comments which part is the chorus, which is the verse. Anyways, so what do you play? So after having played that but baby D7 chord, right, you go to your G7 chord. And what I want to do is I'll give you not necessarily an easy version to play it, but it does make it a little bit more clear. So at first, what you do is you just play the beat. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what I do is that on the 1, I play more the bass part of the chord. And then on the 2, I play the higher part of the chord. Right? Same for the D7. That's on the 3rd. I try to play more the bass. And then the full chord on the 4th beat. Right? So I get 1, 2, 3, 4. Same for A minor 7. 1, 2. And then C7, which is a new chord. You do the same thing. For the C7, you have your pointer finger in 3rd of A through E. Pinky is on B5, ring finger is on D5, right? So from the G7 chord, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And you hear me play that accent on the 2 and the 4, which is very important. Okay, so now in between all those downstrokes are upstrokes. And it's up to us whether we want to play those upstrokes or not. So the thing is that usually with these strumming patterns, some of those upstrokes are played, some of them are not. And it varies from verse to verse or chorus to chorus. So what you can do is you can play this. So you can have down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So you have down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And those upstrokes in between could be muted, right? So you have your downstroke, and then your upstroke is muted. So, and I do that muting by just sort of having my fingers gently touching the strings. And there is hardly any, I mean, you do hear the harmonics, but if you're playing at full speed, you won't really notice that. Right? So now what I'm doing, I'm just playing down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, right? But the only chords that you actually hear where I'm really squeezing the chord is on the beats, right? So the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4. So once you've got that going, what you can do is play around with which upstrokes you actually also want to squeeze, you know, where you want to have the actual sound. And for instance, in the first bar of that G7 chord, you could do. So what I sometimes do is I play on the first chord, I play the downstroke, sounding upstroke, and then the next downstroke, and then the muted upstroke. So you get down, up, down, up, down, 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 up, down. Right? So you have some things that you can play around with. I know this is kind of a little bit different than what I would normally do. Like I would sort of go through it like exactly like this is exactly how you should play it. But this is sort of how you can build it, right? So you just start with the downstrokes. Then you start to add in the muted upstrokes, right? You don't have to do anything different for your right hand. It's already doing down and up. It has a swing feel, by the way. And then the step after that is sort of choosing which of those upstrokes you want to have like actually sound, you know, instead of just being muted, giving sort of in certain places a little bit of extra of the chord. Now you play that sequence, so the G7, D7, A minor 7, C7, play it 4 times. However, the 4th time, instead of just playing the C7 chord, you play this. Right? So what you do is you make a slide with your ring finger from A5 to A7. Then, well, what I'm doing, because I couldn't find a whole lot of examples online, with your pointer finger, you pick up D and G, and then what you do is you sort of slap the A and the E string, and with your pointer finger, you flick and sort of play that D and G again. So like this. And then what you do is make a hammer with your ring finger on D7. And then with your pointer finger, so you remove that ring finger, and you, with your pointer finger, you pick up D and G again. So like this. Now that's too complicated, which I can imagine it is for some. Then what you can do is just continue to play the C7 chord, right? So you don't have to play it, but it's a fun option to do, right? And for those people, you know, playing with others, it could be a good cue to sort of cue in the chorus. Or was it the verse that comes next? Was this chorus? I don't know. So let me play those 2 bars again, right? So G7, D7, A minor 7. But now, having that at the end. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that brings us to our next section. I'll play for you, and then we'll get into how to play that on the guitar. Here we go. All right, so what do? The chords are A minor 7 and G7, which is the same of the intro. And in between those chords, you play that intro riff. So that's what we already covered. What we didn't cover yet is how he's strumming that. So let me show you. So the first thing he does is he plays the E string with his thumb. Then with his pointer finger, he picks up or strums up. Then a slap with a thumb, and then another upstroke like this. So you got bass, up, slap, up. And he does that 2 times so you get. And then that last downstroke that I made is the first beat of the next bar, and that's not just the E string, but that's actually should be the whole chorus. I got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And then we got that riff. And you do the same thing on the G7. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Now, this last time that you play that G chord, instead of playing the G chord the first bar and then the second bar playing that riff, you keep that G chord for another half a bar. So how does that work? So you get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and then on the 3, 4 we get basically a turnaround back into the verse, which is your D7 chord, right? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. And then we get the verse again, which is something that we already covered, right? So that chorus goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. All right, so now for the interlude. Let me play it for you, and then we'll get into how to play that on the guitar. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so what do? There's just one small thing that we haven't done yet. So the chord, instead of G7, it is G here. So that's your G7 chord, but then with your pinky added on D5, right? So your pointer finger is barring third position, and then middle finger is on G4, pinky on D5, and ring finger on A5, right? The strumming or the pattern is the same as in the chorus, right? So you play that thumb for the bass, upstroke, slap, and then upstroke. So you get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you do that for 2 bars for each chord, right? So when you start with the A minor 7 chord, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then G. And this is, by the way, the place where he sings, ain't no need, ain't no need. So once you're done with that, you move on to the bridge. And the bridge goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so what do you do there? As you could see, the picking pattern is the same, right? So when you have, when you start on the bridge, you have 2 bars of A minor 7, followed by 2 bars of D. So that chord is different. What I do is I bar with my ring finger D, G, and B 7, and pointer finger frets A5, right? So that's for that chord. But it starts with A minor 7. Now, the pattern you already play, however, there is one little variation, and that is that the first time you play the E string as a bass note, and then you have the upstroke, slap, up, right? So, and then the second one is going to be on the A string, right? So get, right? So you have an alternating bass line. 1. And that is also continued into your D chord. However, the bass note now is, the first one is on the A string, and the second one is on the D string, right? So that goes like this, 3, 4. And then you repeat A minor 7 again, going back to D. And then we go to B minor. So for that, you have your pointer finger in second of A through E, middle finger is on B3, pinky is on G4, and ring finger is on D4. And also here, it's the same pattern as with the D chord. So you play the A string as a first bass note and the D string as a second one. So then we get this part, which is E minor. So that's just your B minor moved up to 7th position. And then what you do, and this is going to be tricky for some, is you're going to stretch your pointer finger from 7th to 6th while keeping these fingers, so middle finger, ring finger, and pinky in the same spot. So you got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? And then we go to the C chord. There we stick with just the A string as our bass note. And by the way, that C chord is the same as your D chord, but then a whole step down. And then we go into our normal G chord, so to D7, right? And then back to G, all right? So let's start on the B minor chord, and I'll play it through to the end before it goes back to the verse. Here we go. 1, 2, starting on B minor. 1, 2, 3, 4. Going to E minor. And G. D7. G. Right? So you have the G7 twice at the end, and then of course on beat 3 and 4 you play the G7 again to bring you back into the verse. All right, so after having repeated the verse and the chorus, you go to the interlude. However, that interlude is slightly different. So the chords are A minor 7 and G7. And we have that alternating bass line variation of the pattern, right? So we have going to G7, back to A minor 7, and then the very last chord is just a G chord, and you just lay it down like that. I hope you enjoyed that. If you want more Jack Johnson stuff, then put it in the comments below. I've done 2 other Jack Johnson tunes, which is Better Together and what's the other one? Angel, I think. Wishing you all a great week or weekend, and I hope to see you again sometime. Bye.